Kevin Durant has experienced a tough spell with the Suns so far, and it is obvious that if he wants to continue winning, his only way is to get out of the team. There are plenty of options on the table, but it seems like Durantela has finally chosen his next home, the Houston Rockets. But what are the assets that the team from Texas would have to give up in order to bring Kevin Durant, and more importantly, will it be worth it? There is no question about it. The situation between Durant and the Suns could have played out a lot better, but it didn't. There have been a lot of rotations around Kevin Durant, including trading away CP3 to bring Beal just didn't pay its dividends. Furthermore, they went on to trade DeAndre Ayton in a 3-team deal that saw Lillard go to the Bucks, while the Suns received Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasser Little, and Keon Johnson. Well, we know how things ended with these players. Nurkic ended up with the Hornets for a 2026 second-round pick, Cody Martin and Vasilije Micic. They released Nasser Little in order to create more space in their budget cap while cutting Keon Johnson as well. All in all, it was a bad trade, and now Phoenix doesn't really control their picks in the next couple of years. What this means is that they are stuck with what they have right now, and there is one word that we can use to describe the entire atmosphere in the Suns: dysfunctionality. This is why the superstar Kevin Durant might be looking for a way out of the team, and a strong contender is the Rockets. Even though they lost in the first round of the 2024/25 playoffs after finishing second in the Western Conference, they have a lot of trust that they can build around their centerpieces and trade away some of their future draft picks. Suns, on the other hand, are understanding the situation they are in right now. They have no control of their future, and unless they trade away a superstar like Durant, they won't get many chances to get a hold of their draft picks. This is why Tim McMahon of ESPN believes that this is a no-brainer trade for both sides. Houston is looking to win now with the depth they have, while Phoenix would be highly intrigued by the picks that the Rockets would be able to offer them in this deal. Elaborating on this situation, Tim stated that the trade of Durant is a matter of the front office of the Rockets, adding, "The Rockets brass, Stone, Udoka, and Patrick Fertitta, are aligned in the ambition to allow this young group to grow together. Nevertheless, it is anticipated that there will be internal discussions at a minimum this summer regarding potential star pursuits in the trade market. That does not mean that they are completely out on the possibility of KD. But the downfall of the Suns is something that should create a lot of thoughts if you are the front office of the Rockets. Having Durant on your roster doesn't automatically guarantee a winning culture. In 2023, the Suns lost in the Western Conference semi-finals. In 2024, they got bounced in the first round. And in 2025, they even failed to qualify for the play-in tournament. It's just a downhill from here on, and while you cannot fully blame it on Durant, the team kind of played this narrative that he is the next franchise leader along with Booker. This is why they decided to trade key pieces like CP3 and Ayton. But on the other hand, now it seems like Phoenix is ready to build their franchise around Devin Booker solely. So, if you were to shop players from the Suns, I'd assume that the only one off the trade block would be Booker. What doesn't bode well if you were to acquire Durant is the current contractual situation he is in with the Suns. He is eligible for free agency a year from now, so an extension will presumably accompany any trade. Even without Durant, the future of the Rockets is very bright, especially with talented players like Sengun, Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., and Tari Eason. However, their youth needs a very strong veteran presence. All of these players are 23 or younger, which means they lack the experience of going deep into the playoffs and making any type of run whatsoever. Players like VanVleet and Dillon Brooks are bringing that to the table, but if you are to look at Durant, it's just an option that is too hard to turn a blind eye to. Even though he is 36 years old, we are talking about a small forward who averaged over 25 points per game with elite efficiency. But with the Suns' latest playoff struggles, there have been tons of talks about his future with the team, which makes him a prime target for the aggressive front office that the Rockets have. Andy Bailey from Bleacher Report believes that the math between the Rockets and the Suns is a bit harder to understand because of the situation that the Suns are in. As he went on to say, "The math is a little tougher on this one than some of the previous deals. since the Suns are a second apron team that can't aggregate outgoing salaries or take in more money than it sends out. In short, this is about the only combination of players that works for the Rockets to bring Durant for this run. That is why Houston is sending the Suns back its own 2027 picks and including 2 more firsts for good measure. It's a relatively steep price to pay for a 36-year-old with KD's injury history, but the Rockets' resulting rotation would be pretty terrifying. But there are tons of questions that need to be answered here, such as what the Rockets are ready to give up in order to acquire the services of the Suns. As of now, it seems like Van Vliet and Whitmore are going to go to the Suns along with 3 valuable picks, which does make you question whether or not it's worth giving up on the future just for Durant. I guess it is, but the Slim Reaper would have to be extremely efficient combined with the youth that we mentioned earlier in this video. That is all but a guarantee. If Houston executes this deal, it could definitely be the beginning of a thrilling era for the Rockets, who would come in hot in the next season and try to prove that they are the team to beat in the West. On the other hand, the Rockets might be giving away too much for a player who has changed teams a lot of times, has been paired up with other superstars like Irving, but hasn't won anything since the super team back with the Warriors. And according to Tim McMahon, there are lots of questions that the Rockets would have to answer to themselves when it comes to the worthiness of this trade. Elaborating on this, Tim said, "Does Durant make sense for the Rockets entering his age 37 season, considering the costs of trading for him and extending his contract? How aggressively would Houston go after 30-year-old Giannis if he finally asked for a trade out of Milwaukee? How about younger stars who would better fit Houston's timeline? Is Zion Williamson's immense potential worth the risks? Maybe Ja Morant if he ends up as a trade possibility." This is very important because the Rockets have some valuable picks, and they can dangle them in front of every franchise that knows that they cannot win with their current superstar. One of these franchises is the Bucks, as the 2021 champion has now come to understand that they cannot count on the services of Lillard, and with Lopez and Portis becoming free agents later this year, it's evident that they might be looking to trade Giannis in order to take care of their future. Of course, if the Bucks decided that they would part ways with the Greek Freak, the Rockets might have the best offer on the grid alongside the Spurs, given their immense trade potential with draft picks. But when it comes to Durant, he would be a bit restricted because if it's not for the Rockets, his options are kind of limited. The Heat might be a suitable candidate for the small forward, but all in all, we see him as a player of the Rockets if a trade were about to happen, and Giannis would remain with the Bucks. With all this in mind, do you think that the deal between Durant and the Rockets is a done deal? And more importantly, how do you think it will affect the future of the sport? Let us know in the comments below.